Everybody, and welcome to Leadership 101. I'm Jeff Moss, College Hunks hauling junk, Wilmington, North Carolina, and now Griffin, Georgia. And I have a really special guest today, the original College Hunk, one of two, Omar Soliman. Omar, welcome.
Hey, Jeff, great to be here, man. Super excited.
I am so excited to walk everybody through the story. Talked to Nick about a month ago, so this is bringing closure. We have to start with peanut butter and jelly. If anybody saw the Undercover Boss episode, I love the exchange with you and Nick, and you're the peanut butter, right?
Yes, that's right. I said I'm the peanut butter, he's the jelly. But we recently were on a plane together, and my wife snapped a picture of us because I was taking a nap and he was reading a book about taxes. So I was like, hey, that's a great way to sum up our partnership. He's up reading about taxes and I'm taking a nap.
Nick and I have so much in common, and it cracked me up because on one part of the call, Nick said, I'm an emotional guy, and sometimes I get ahead of myself a little bit. And I was like, I get that prize too, but it's the wind up, monkey, wind him up and let him go. And he just, it's fun to watch the two of you guys work together though, because you balance each other so well. So let's just step back in time. I know you met in detention in high school, right?
Yes.
And I told folks,
and I'll tell you how, I don't really remember what got me in there, but, and I told this story at the convention, but, what got Nick in there is during a high school basketball game, there was a loose ball and he got tangled up with the mascot of the opposing team, which happened to be this giant frog. And he ends up punching the frog in his frog head, and the entire crowd was just like, oh. I'm looking at it and I'm like, man, I really like that guy. So sort of the story starts back then, as 10th grade troublemakers. And we kind of became friends early on. I think we both didn't realize that we were entrepreneurs. There was no Shark Tank. There was no TV shows that glamorized or showcased what business ownership was or what being an entrepreneur was. So that wasn't a term. And so in school, we were usually labeled as troublemakers or guys that couldn't sit still in class and probably had a little bit of ADD. Yeah, man, it's been a crazy ride doing it with a high school buddy.
Did you realize at that point you met, I know you said you weren't really entrepreneurs, but did you realize how well you balanced each other even back then?
I think there was a definite, obviously, we were drawn to each other. So there had to have been some definite complement, of personalities. And I think, what most people who know us well will say is, Nick's wound up pretty tight. He's definitely got a little bit of OCD. I'm a little bit more a go with the flow, laid back kind of guy. And you kind of need a little bit of both, without someone once said that Nick is too much in the weeds and I'm not in the weeds enough. If you need a little bit of both, to kind of like balance it out and give different opinions and sort of hold each other accountable to different things. So, really, we've had a lot of lucky breaks and we'll probably get into some of them, but obviously that first one is us just having to be in high school together in Washington, DC was probably the first lucky break.
So was it typical? You're going to the University of Miami, but your family's in Washington, DC, right? Mm-hmm. And yes. Where was Nick in school?
So after high school, he went out to California at a school called Pomona College.
Okay.
So, liberal arts school, highly academic, and he played basketball there. And, we basically went as far away from home as possible. I went from DC to Miami and he went from DC to California. So I don't know. I think we just both wanted to see palm trees or something when we were going to class.
But then you get together during the summer at home in Washington, right? Yeah, and exactly. That's where I guess between your junior and senior year, you're trying to figure out how not to work for your parents, as I recall. And your mom has this brilliant idea.
Yes. So it was summer before senior year. All my buddies had jobs, kind of like preparing for life after college. So even Nick had an internship at the World Bank or one of those kind of international monetary economic type think tank things. And, I was listening to all that. I'm like, man, everyone's really planning. I was excited because I was going to do nothing. I was going to play video games, and my mom she was like, no, Omar, you're going to get a job. You're not going to sit around going to the pool all day. The word of the day is job, J-O-B. And I had done the typical sort of crappy jobs that college students do. I worked at the mall my freshman year at a place called Record Town. And, it was a chain back then. Some people remember it. It sold these things called CDs for the young audience.
That was after vinyl.
Right. It was after vinyl, and it was still called Record Town. So, so I did that. You look at your paycheck, it's like minimum wage, then taxes and everything. It's like, I just worked like 40 hours. I got like $87.
Yeah.
So I was like, man, I want to do something different. And I'd seen this van that my mom used for her furniture store. And I would often, when I was in trouble, get sent out with one of the delivery guys to go deliver couches or, furniture. And usually when you show up, people would then say, hey, can you throw these things away? So I think that's where like junk removal just first came into the thought process. And so it's like, hey, maybe I could do some odd jobs around the neighborhood with it. And we were sitting around the dinner table, and, it's Nick, me, and, a couple buddies from high school that we're home for summer break. And my mom was like, you guys are like the college hunks who haul junk. And we all just busted out laughing, and kind of said it again. We're like, college hunks haul junk. I was like, that name is amazing. Feel the earth move when you said it. It was like something about it just immediately sparked. And
but most people would have just stopped right there and said, hey, that's really funny. And they would have moved on. But you two guys, I mean, you just took off.
As soon as she said it, it was like, it literally was like the earth stopped moving, or just something just happened. Cause like I heard the name and I was like, that's the best name for a company I've ever heard. And so I literally that night put some computer flyers together, passed them around the neighborhood, and then, thought, okay, maybe if someone calls me, that people will like it. And like literally that night, phone rang, and it was like off and running. People were like, love the name. At the beginning, it was just a name, and there was a need for the service to basically haul people's stuff out of their garage or attic or basement. And so that's what we did. We just go around in this van and just haul people's junk. And it was like the greatest summer of my life. We were like working hard, getting up at 5 a.m. The van had no air conditioning. All types of crazy things happened. I don't know how long of a show this is, but a lot of crazy stuff happened, and made some good money. And, just felt like I'd reached like this amazing, the first time I realized that I was an entrepreneur, the first time I think where Nick and I were like, man, there's a life outside of just like the things that you think, it's like, you can go and start a business, or you can drive this van around and make money. And it was just that aha moment.
So you're 21 years old when you figured that out. I'm 52. I just did a great interview with the CEO of Stuckey's Corporation, Stephanie Stuckey. She's 53 when she figures it out. And Stephanie talked about that you have this early life pivot or late life pivot. You guys had an early life pivot moment that, most people miss, honestly.
It was the lucky break. I mean, again, maybe, and I think there's a saying I use in some of my talks that sometimes people miss opportunity because it's dressed in overalls and looks like work. And that saying couldn't be more true with that van. Cause like, but for me, I didn't see it as like junk. I wasn't like passionate about hauling junk. It was like the first time I'm like, wait, you can create a business that has a demand. You can get in there, make some money, teach, coach employees, meet clients. Like you can actually do something that's not math, English, science, things they don't necessarily traditionally teach in school that I was never good at. I was a C student. For me, it was like, well, I don't like science and dissecting pigs. I'm never going to be a doctor. I don't like math. I'm not going to be a scientist. So I'm like, there's nothing for me to do. That's it.
Well, these interviews always take me down a path I'm not expecting, but your point you just made really resonates now, because college diplomas have become like high school diplomas with all the scholarship programs and the lottery scholarships. I mean, people are graduating from college now, probably, I don't know how many fold more than it used to be, but I mean, there's no distinguishing people. How do you, at the point you've got to make a decision to go into a trade, go to college, get a degree. I mean, there's such pressure on young people now to try to figure this out.
Yeah, it's tough. And I mean, I think for us growing up, I wish there had been some early education about business and entrepreneurship, and just a class or something to like expose us to. I think now it's happening more, obviously, again, shows like Shark Tank.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more, you know, The Profit on CNBC. There's a lot of businessy shows, investor type shows that have now made it intriguing. That didn't exist, you know, when we were growing up. And so it's starting to happen. But yes, I think it's that, plus, to your point, like, what about trades? Like, you know, welding, plumbing, HVAC. I mean, there's so much demand, and you can earn an amazing living doing those things. And not everyone needs to go be a lawyer or a doctor or a scientist. And honestly, you can make, you know, I know my plumber has a couple boats, so I know he does really, really well. So I mean, it doesn't all have to be like the mold doesn't fit everyone. And I think that's what I really learned from that experience.
So one of the things that I thought was really riveting, you get back to Miami and I guess you're taking a class on business planning or business writing, and you enter the competition, you win it, you get paid this nice handsome check, and you're a senior in college. I love the stories in The Effortless Entrepreneur. Has your wife read the book, by the way?
You know, she might have glazed over the chapter, but yeah, I was like, okay, you're gonna hand a college kid $10,000 that's about 8 miles from South Beach. That's never a good idea.
But you know, it's so funny because you can visualize that happen. And here I am with a fistful of money, and I can buy my way past the bouncer and get, you know, the ladies into the bar.
The crazier part of that story is, you know, talking about the lucky breaks, right? It's the mom, you know, having the van, Nick and I meeting in 10th grade. You know, this is the third one because the judge in the contest, well, there was a group of judges, and one of the judges actually ended up changing his score. So he chases me out of the room. He's like, I love the business. Like, here's my card. Goes back in the room and give me like a 6 out of 10 in one of the categories. And so he starts scratching his head. He's like, I chased the kid out of the room. Like, so he changed it from a 6 to a 9. And the College Hunks business plan ends up winning by 1 point. And so, you know, that if he didn't do that, again, I don't think we would have had the confidence to start the business if it didn't win that business plan.
Well, even then, as I recall from the book, Nick has gone somewhere and is working in a cubicle, and he picks up the phone and calls you and says, man, I hate this. Let's put the business plan in play, right?
That was after, yeah. So after we graduated, then we both got corporate jobs. We both were sitting, you know, again, the parallels are funny, but we both got corporate jobs in downtown Washington, D.C. that were across the street from each other. Wow. So he was working in one like building and I was working in another one in cubicles, and we would come down at our lunch break and, you know, kind of look disillusioned and beaten down. Like, man, this is tough. Like, we got about 40 more years of it. All right. This is how many days are we in? It's like, okay, 14.
So when you go back to your mom and you say, we're going to start this as a real business, I mean, what was her reaction at that point?
So my mom has always been an entrepreneur and sort of had that entrepreneurial, you know, edge. So, you know, my mom and parents were a little bit more okay with it. Nick's dad, you know, is a little bit like, what? you're going to do what?
Well, he just watched Nick beat up a frog on a sideline 4 years earlier, and now he's starting a business, right?
Now he's starting a business in junk removal. It's like, I just got a college degree, I've got a great job, and I'm going to quit, and I'm going to start a junk business, you know, with no money, and buy maybe a truck, and we'll see what happens. I mean, you know, it's a lot. People didn't know what the brand was. It was like you go to a dinner party or something, and you're talking to someone. It's like, oh, I'm going to start a business. It's like, what is it? They would look at you like, what? Are you insane? So there was a little bit of that for sure.
Well, I'm sure now they're looking back on it and going, oh my goodness, thank goodness this happened. Look at what our kids and our grandchildren, because now I know Nick's got 4 kids, you've got 2, right?
Yeah.
So now you guys, we had a really interesting conversation toward the end, because I told Nick I'd really seen him change, you know, over the years as he's become a parent. And when you become a parent, all of your thinking changes. So on Undercover Boss, you know, when the young lady's talking about the medical challenges of her children, the dangerous, and I mean, you can just see, I said, you feel like you're sitting in that house waiting for your children to go out and play and worry they're going to get shot, man. It's amazing how your perspective changes. It
really does. It really does. it's cool to also see that, our daughters are in the same grade. So we've got, his daughter, my daughter, both 5 and, in the same grade in the same school. So it's like, and they kind of look, they both have the personalities in from just seeing them that are the most similar, I think, to Nick and I.
Yeah.
And so it's really funny seeing the two of them. And you're like, oh man, these guys are going to grow up just like how we grew up and, be in the same grade and go to the same school. It's like, it's pretty wild. It's kind of a surreal almost.
Yeah, I mean, it's just funny how this, I'm a person of faith and I believe God has a plan. And it's
Yeah.
funny when you go back in retrospect and start looking at how the pieces came together, and you just can't deny the fact that if you open your eyes to it, there's so many things just aren't happenstance. They happen for a reason, but you've got to be smart enough to see it happening and then follow it and then see it through,
Yeah. And I mean, I agree with you. I think, there's a higher power, there's definitely, in my opinion, God, like, there's no way all these things could have happened. It's sort of what I kind of get at, when I give talks too, is just like, this van, this meeting this kid and all these different things. Like we met our wives 1 week apart at the same place. I mean, it's like, there's gotta be some higher power.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's pretty wild. It's pretty wild.
The Shark Tank, you're what, at this point, 28 years old?
27.
27, you see an ad, you wind up there, Nick throat punches Mr. Wonderful.
He told him to stop talking in a very stern manner.
He did. But he got his attention. We talked about him coming back and basically saying, hey, we missed it. You're now a $100 million company all these years later, the 15-year overnight success.
Yeah.
So talk about from the Shark Tank kind of forward, how did you guys bridge from we own college hunks in Washington, D.C., now we're going to franchise this thing? That had to be a process.
Yes, it was. I mean, I think it was something in even the original business plan was franchising, but we have obviously no idea what that meant or how to do it. And so just kind of started learning about it, going to conferences, and one sort of ace in the hole that we had is that I had a good buddy from University of Miami that said, hey, whenever your franchise ready, I want to open the first franchise. And so sort of had this in the back of my mind, like, okay, well, we could get the legal part done. We've at least got one. We've got one franchise. And so we definitely got into franchising too early. We were still young guys in a young business without a lot of business experience. We didn't have a ton of staff around us.
Right.
Certainly didn't have a lot of know-how, but we got into it and jumped right in. And it was quite a learning curve, I'd say. Franchising, people paint this picture of it being, if you're franchising, you're swimming in cash, and it's, McDonald's makes a lot of money, so everyone makes money, and it's very, very hard, especially in the beginning. So it was kind of a slow growth in those early years. And Shark Tank happened in 2009. I think we were about a year and a half into franchising, and that was like our first big pop as a brand. I think that was the first time our brand was really took a national, where people heard about it anywhere, from California, or it's like college, the name just sort of resonated. And then that led into some other things and some other shows. And for a certain 10 of the 15 years, our brand was always bigger than our business. It's like, even when we had one truck and we drive it around, people would say, man, I see your trucks everywhere. It's like, we only have one. So it was always like, had this sort of image of being bigger. It's like, people would always say, like, isn't that a franchise, or isn't that in this state? We're like, no, it's,
that hasn't changed. I hear that every day as well. People think I've got a fleet of 50 trucks up in Wilmington. It would be interesting because we're just getting ready to open in Griffin, Georgia, our second location. And I'm really curious to see if it works here. It's amazing, but I'll tell you what it is. It's the colors.
It's the colors, it's the name, and our trucks are busy. Like you probably are, in DC, we were working with that one truck, 5-6 jobs a night. So you did probably see it driving all around town. We would park it, as that's one big part of our strategy, is getting them out there. But then at some point, our business started to finally catch up to the brand, which I think happened, in the past 5 years, and franchisees like you guys have seen a real crazy growth curve because, you came in and it's like what year did you start?
2018.
Okay. So yeah, you're right at about 4 or so. I mean, just in
Coming
those
up on
4
4
years,
years.
you've seen probably insane amount of growth.
Yeah.
And so it sort of hit this tipping point about 5, 6 years ago where it just kind of,
it's right place at the right time. It's interesting, people think that the colors that were chosen for College Hunks are purely because Omar is the University of Miami graduate. Talk a little bit about the process you guys went through with branding this company and changing Hunks, by the way, the acronym, coming up with the acronym.
Yeah, so the original colors were going to actually be black and red because we were starting in DC, and that's where University of Maryland is, and
the University of Georgia too, man. That would
have
been all right.
So we were going to go with black and red because our office was going to be in College Park, and but it's just, to me, I was like, that doesn't pop. Like, if I see a black and red truck, no offense to the black and red trucks out there, but I just it doesn't catch my eye. And I was at my mom's store, and one of the decorators was there. And he was, doing something. I'm like, hey, I forgot his name, but I was like, hey, give me 2 colors that would pop as soon as you saw him. He's like, 2 colors, orange and green. And I was like, duh. I was like, of course, those are 2 colors that would pop. So it actually didn't even start with me even thinking of Miami until he said that. But then it was like, it works perfectly because the orange is that collegiate sort of fun brand. The green represents sustainability, recycling. So it's just like perfect. And it has that just amazing pop when you see those trucks driving around.
So it's funny that people think that men are so shallow, and we are, I can admit it, men are shallow, but you know what? Women are too. I was at the landfill today in Griffin, doing some contracting, and the lady at the landfill with the contract, she goes, so when do I get to meet the hunks? And I said, well, what you're looking at me? And she said, well, I want to see the hunks. And I said, well, we're all hunks, honest, uniform, nice, knowledgeable service. But I said, the guys call me Papa Hunk. I said, I know I'm gray and all that, but it's funny. I mean, we have clients calling all the time, and it's like, they think that hunks means this, and we've been trying to re-educate them, right? So how did y'all come up with the acronym?
What's great is it's a conversation starter. And before sort of viral stuff, like before Facebook blew up and Instagram and Twitter, we started right at the very beginning. It was 03 to 05. So Facebook had just launched. So we were like a viral brand in the sense that people would come home, they would talk about it at the dinner table. And it was always like, I saw this truck that said College Hunks hauling junk on the side of it. And they would laugh, and then they would have a conversation about it.
Yeah.
That's what the brand is like, it creates those conversations. Now, Hunks does stand for honest, uniform, nice, knowledgeable service, which is an acronym, because we got a lot of those questions that we're like, all right, that's it. Not everyone, Hunk is in the eye of the beholder, but in truth, that's really what we are selling as a brand is that honest, uniform, nice, knowledgeable service. When you think of movers, when you think of junk haulers, you're not necessarily thinking of guys with pristine uniforms, tucked in, looking the part, looking good, personable, look you at the eye when they talk to you, shake your hand, all those things that you would expect from the College Hunks way. You're not necessarily going to get that with the other guy. And we were just talking, before you started recording, was like, we want to be the 4 seasons of moving and hauling, right?
Yeah.
And that's the image that we're trying to put out.
I've described it in a different way, but it's the same thing. I want to be the Chick-fil-A of movers.
I like that one. I use that one too, by the way.
Yeah, and I don't know if you see this. Truett's, are you familiar with that?
I don't know. No, I don't
This is the original Chick-fil-A. Truett Cathy's the founder. And in this area, the Griffin, Georgia, is where Chick-fil-A was started.
Yes.
And so
I actually love that analogy more, and that's the one I used to use. But because I think Chick-fil-A is very similar to us in terms of their frontline employees have like power to just, you go through that drive-through and everyone's positive, and there's 100 cars, they get you through there. And I love that. And I agree with you. I think we are
one of the things
one day Chick-fil-A will say they're the College Hunks of fast food.
I would think you're right. Just for fun, and I hope the viewers will do this. go get in line at Chick-fil-A. And if you can see one of their competitors, and you may be car 20 in line at Chick-fil-A, mark car number 7 or 8 in the line at the other guy, and you will get through Chick-fil-A before they will. Hands down.
Yes. And, I love you bring that up, because that's, one thing that Nick and I have always been a student of is just other businesses. And Chick-fil-A, another one that reminds me a lot of that is Southwest Airlines. Their motto is wheels up, which, you probably enjoy that, but it's same thing. Like, you'll see the pilot, they'll start throwing suitcases if they got to get that plane up. And Southwest isn't for everyone. Not everyone loves Chick-fil-A. Not every college hunks isn't for everyone, but I think we cater to our brand lovers, our brand enthusiasts, and that's really what makes the brand. It's those people that are loyal, that really appreciate what your purpose is, and that's what we've been able to tap into.
When I was leaving corporate America, one of my friends said to me, and this sounds terrible, but everybody knows what I'm talking about when I say this. He said, I don't see you hanging off the back of a move truck with a cigarette out of one corner of your mouth and a wife beater on. And I'm like, that's people's perception.
That's it. That's our competition.
It is. That's what people think. And I want us to be, and we are, and I want us to be, because we are, this pristine mover. And as I'm coming into this area and asking the chambers of commerce, I've met with all of them already, can you tell me who your premier mover is? And they're like, nah. Well, you won't say that in a month, because we're coming to town and this is what we're going to do. And this is how we operate. Yeah. Those are the standards. So you said the college hunks way a minute ago. How important is it to you and Nick that operators perform to the college hunks way? And what does that do for the brand?
Oh man, it's everything. The experience is everything. In those early days, when it was us in the van or us with that first truck, the sizzle could get you there, right? Like, we were a couple guys, we'd bumble through the experience, but it was what it was. But now, as we've evolved into a mature business, in a business that has professional clients, offices, government agencies, universities, that level of service has to be top notch. And the way we do that is through what we call the college hunks way. It's sort of that interaction point that you have with our brand through that client experience from point A to point Z. We really want to create that experience and make sure that's unified across all of our franchises, right? And that's Chick-fil-A. You go to Milwaukee, you go to Tampa, the line is moving quick, and the frontline employees are enthusiastic and energetic, and they even remember. My mother-in-law goes to Chick-fil-A. They remember her orders. They're busy. It's crazy. Like, they know she always gets an iced tea. So
quality of the product is always high.
Yeah.
And they rarely forget to put things in your bag that you order.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the little things, right?
It's the little things. That's it. It's the little things. Exactly. And moving, as we all know, you and I, all the viewers would know, but it's one of the most stressful things in someone's life. So, buying a Chick-fil-A sandwich is not the most stressful thing. So our opportunity to obviously screw up is higher, but also our opportunity to really save someone is higher. So, like I've always said, when people call a company like ours, they're basically dialing 911 because they're looking to be rescued. It's like, I'm moving, I have a junk haul, I have mold in my house. You call a mold company, pest, you're dialing 911 and if those companies aren't able to really come in and rescue you and create that true experience of saving you, for lack of a better word, then I think you missed your chance.
I told somebody the other day, especially, and I think this is especially true of people that don't move a lot. I mean, their expectations are a little bit out of alignment because you're buying furniture one stick at a time, and it's showing up at your house still in the original packing. And now you want me to put that piece of furniture on a truck with all of its friends and move it from point A to point B with no damage at all, not even a scratch. Got to set a realistic expectation with folks, right?
Well, IKEA furniture, folks, is not made to move. Well, once you buy IKEA furniture, that's where it's staying. You can't move IKEA furniture 6 times.
and expect that it's going to make it. And
right.
And the ones that really surprised me, that they put a 500-pound gun safe up on the second floor of a house.
Yeah.
How it got there, I have no idea, but they think that Paul Armstrong is going to show up, just walk it down the stairs, and nothing bad's going to happen.
And that's the challenge. That's what makes us different than Chick-fil-A, and that's what makes our business more challenging, but our opportunity to actually do more good, even more, because, you know, all the customers come to the same place at Chick-fil-A. They all go to the same place. If I'm the manager, I can walk around, I see everyone.
Yeah.
So for me, it's kind of easy. Like that's an easy gig. What college hunks, right? Our trucks they're all going out. You know, you're going to different scenarios,
Right.
different homes, different offices, everything. Every move is different. We were just talking about that.
Yeah.
That every move matters. Every move is also different.
The story's different every time. You know, what's causing the move, or what, you know, the anxiety that the client's feeling at that particular moment. But you know, our core value: listen, fulfill, and delight. Always branding, building leaders, and of course, create a fun, enthusiastic team environment. Those are the 4 pillars that you and Nick built this company on. Where did that come from, and how are you guys now, as the visionaries of the brand, continuing to try to embolden those values in your franchise partners?
You know, I think it came from a lot of different experiences. You know, both of us having jobs that didn't have a lot of culture, from working, you know, again at the mall, all the way to the sort of the corporate jobs that we had, or you know, there was a lot wrong with that we wanted to create something that was different. And then just being a student also of all these great iconic brands like a Southwest Airlines, like Harley Davidson, and these brands that have become like iconic. You know, you go to a Harley Davidson store and they don't sell any motorcycles. It's all shirts. And it's like, well, what are they doing that's different, right? And so I think from an early on, we've aspired to be one of those iconic brands. And so that's been really the catalyst for the core values and the culture. I think in our book, we talk about, you know, a company without a culture is sort of like having a picture frame with no photo. It's just like, it's a skeleton, but like, you know, you don't hang a bunch of empty photos in your house. The photos, the family, it shows you in your experience. It sort of tells you who you are.
Right.
So like our photo is those core values that you mentioned: the building leaders, the always branding, the fun, enthusiastic team environment, the listen, fulfill, and delight. And then the purpose of our company is to move the world, meaning obviously we want to move people's stuff all over the world. And that's what we aspire to do. But really, when you sort of peel back the onion, what we really are doing is we move people emotionally. So when you call us, our job is to move your stuff, but also move you emotionally through a positive experience. And when we do that, you know, as you know, you've got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of 5-star Google reviews. You know, that sort of goes mini viral, right? People share it, they share the good stories. And our franchises that have 1,000 5-star reviews, you get more business because of it.
I think what we have been able to do, Omar, that really makes a difference, very transparent. I believe in telling the complete, honest truth, and again, setting expectations. And Lombardi said, you know, he was Packers coach, if you seek perfection, you might actually capture excellence, or words to that effect. And we explain that to customers, but we're going to do the right thing. We're here to do the right thing. We're going to do our dead level best for you. They don't expect that anymore. I think customers have gotten so jaded in companies that, you know, especially in areas like you all in Tampa and me in Wilmington, North Carolina, that have tropical storms, damage done, and people roll into town, take their money, leave. The trust is really diminished in what I'm observing, and we've got to win back the consumer trust.
Yeah, that's a huge piece. I mean, trust and care are sort of the 2 emotions that folks are looking for when they're choosing a company like ours, right? And so you really, when you peel back our onion and look at what we do and why we do it, it's to build that trust. We want the consumer to trust us. And even in the early days, I always say, you know, what makes our company different is that, like, we'd have clients just hand us the keys to their house and be like, can you just haul the stuff out? I'm going to go to the store. Like, you don't do that with other companies. And that was like the level of trust that we were able to build in the marketplace that we started, but now across all the different markets that we're in.
So as we're wrapping up, I mean, there are a couple other topics I want to touch on. First of all, what's your advice to today's entrepreneur, those people that they're in the corporate grind, or they're in a situation that they're not really chasing their dream? What do you tell people like that? How do they start?
I think I am a big advocate of franchising, right? So I think franchising allows you to go into business for yourself and not by yourself, as you know. So I'm a big advocate of going out and looking and not having to necessarily recreate the wheel. There's a lot of like talented people, like corporate America. Yeah, there's a negative stereotypes of it, but like it also builds some pretty
Yeah.
good leaders, right? If you've managed a sales team in corporate America, or you've grown a company in corporate America or in the military, as you also know, those are good leaders. And so rather than necessarily having to go and start a new business from scratch, franchising is always a good option. Aside from that, this environment, in today's environment, you're able to do things kind of like, 5 hours a week or 10 hours a week to sort of test the market as well. So it's this free agent workforce is becoming more and more of a thing. So whether it's a graphic designer or internet programmer, people are able to kind of test things out quicker and fail faster or succeed faster. So I think, I'm a big advocate in certainly trying, and don't necessarily have to bet the farm. There's ways to test things out that are pretty low risk. And franchising, of course, shameless plug, is always a great way to
I don't disagree. It amazes me the folks that buy the recipe and don't follow it.
Yeah.
Whether it's with our brand or any other brand. I mean, the whole point of franchising is, here's the playbook.
Mhm.
You should probably read it and pay a little bit of attention to it. And if you do, great things can happen.
Yeah, look, franchising is not a guarantee of success. I can guarantee that there's, Chick-fil-A franchises that have failed. There's people that, for many reasons, right, things that are in their control or not in their control. But to your point, like, it's a recipe for success, but it's not going to necessarily do the work for you. So, and that's what makes it great, is it's independent business owners, like someone like yourself, right? You've got your talents and your experience from all the things that you've done, bringing that military discipline into franchising. That's a winning recipe. It's obviously proving to work. And same thing that we're trying to do with some of the student athletes that we're working with and trying to bring on. It's like, if you're able to succeed at a high level in the military or in sports, there's chances are that you have a lot of intangible personality traits that are going to lend themselves really well in a business like ours. And
Yeah.
I always describe, like, not always, but I often describe our sort of our franchises as head coaches of like a college football team, right? It's like the same things that make a head coach successful makes a College Hunks franchisee successful. You're always recruiting, right?
Yeah.
You're always going, paying, the visits and doing what you got to do. You're always building that team of assistants around you, and you're developing the playbook and redeveloping the playbook. You're always trying to obviously develop the talent that you have in the locker room. And then you're sort of also a spokesperson for the university or for the school in that local community.
Yeah.
It's the exact same thing. A College Hunks is like a league, right? Like the NFL or the Major League Baseball. We're the College Hunks League. And then we've got all of these franchises that are teams within that league, and they have varying success. And, we have our annual convention. It's almost like our, I don't know, like winning the Heisman Trophy or the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And so it's very, lots of parallels between sports. And
we work really hard every year on KPIs, key performance indicators. And I think, to your point, Michael Jordan was better when Scottie Pippen and some of the other players came to the Chicago Bulls. Prove a running back without an offensive line. You can't win unless you've got the right players in the right position. And part of that is being self-aware. So when you think about that for yourself, what are some of the things where you feel like, I need help in this area or that area because this isn't really my strength?
Oh man,
what comes to mind?
That's like 90% of it. 90% of the things that's maybe 95. I need help in all the areas and just about. And that's what's kind of interesting about, when you grow the company. It's sort of in small business, you're playing youth soccer, all the kids are chasing the ball, and then you kind of get more structure and more structure. In today's College Hunks world, Nick and I sit in what we'd call the owner's box. We're not wearing the headset. That's obviously Roman as the brand president, calling in the plays or running the playbook. You got your offensive coordinator, your defensive coordinator, your head coach, and we're kind of in the owner's box these days. And really our job or our role is to set the direction for the brand, hold Roman and the team accountable to hitting their goals, and really being cheerleaders for our brand, and then also trying to break down barriers. So, if the IT team needs to work with this X team, or the marketing team needs to work with so-and-so, like, we need to really make sure that the team is working to their best ability together. Because, the only competition Jeff, as you probably know, is us, right?
Yeah.
You know, we don't have enough trucks or people to get all the jobs done. So we're really competing against ourselves. And that's what we go to battle every day doing.
Well, if you're thinking about the future of College Chunks, you just pretty much summed it up. What do you think, I mean, 10 years down the road, where do you see this brand?
Man, it's going to be pretty wild, so 10 years down the road, we're going to be $1 billion company. And it sounds cool, but I really look at that as the opportunities that we're able to create. It's going to be a major player in the home service industry and beyond that. Iconic, an iconic brand. You'll see the amount of leaders that are coming in and out of this brand is going to be huge. Former professional athletes, former future doctors. I mean, all that. I believe that one day the president of the United States of America will have worked at College Hunks. Once.
Well, I can tell you, a former one's my neighbor down in Plains, Georgia, and he knows College Hunks.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely. President Carter.
Oh, no way. He knows College Hunks.
See, yeah, of course he does. Yeah, of course he does. He's very familiar. And of course, he's 97 years old now. So he's not getting around. My dad's 91. I don't know if you saw the video I shot of my dad. I hung the big medallion around his neck, and he said, I'm 91. Awesome. I don't move like I used to. So I call the College Hunks,
Well, he's a peanut farmer, so he appreciates the hard farmer's day work right there. So
he does. It was so cool. I was 12 years old when he got elected, but it was so cool actually knowing him and the opportunity. He swore me into the Army. And when you get commissioned down there where it says by the president, he actually signed it. Jimmy Carter. Not many people have an opportunity like that, but Plains as a community is 600 people. Everybody knows one another. And that's how I came up on a farm, wearing the overalls, as you said, and grinding. But Omar, this has been great. I want to just kind of give everybody a preview. The next interview I'm going to do is with a good friend of mine I've known for 25 years. He had a child with a medical issue. His company let him go. He started his own business, and at 55, sold it. And needless to say, he doesn't need to work another day in his life, but he will. But it all happened because somebody made a bad decision. So for the next Leadership 101, we're going to get to meet a really cool guy that in the face of adversity really changed his life and had to make, again, a late life pivot. So early life pivot with Omar Soliman. Omar, thank you so much for being here today. And I hope people will walk away from this conversation realizing that, even at 21, you can come up with a pretty novel idea and turn it into $1 billion business.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. I mean, I think it took a lot of luck, but absolutely. Anytime. It's never too young or too old, in my opinion.
Well, we appreciate you being here. Our next guest is a gentleman named Luke Esslinger. So I look forward to seeing everybody soon and wish you the very best, Omar.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Jeff.
Be blessed.